Welcome to another video from ExplainingComputers.com and to Pi Week, a week in which I'm going to use this Raspberry Pi 2 as my only computer. Now admittedly I picked a week in which I won't be doing any video editing or any 3D modelling because the Pi really wouldn't cope with that, but everything else I do on a computer this week, everything social, everything work-based, will be done on my Raspberry Pi. So I won't be using any smartphone apps, any smartphone internet access, any tablets, any laptops, any desktops. Everything's going to be on the Pi. And I hope as we go through this video diary, I'll learn a few things about the Pi myself and also pass on quite a few tips about how to use the Pi for all sorts of computing purposes. Right, well here I am on the afternoon of day one with my first video diary entry. This is my setup for the week with the Raspberry Pi. You can see it's there connected into wired Ethernet. It's got a keyboard and a mouse connected, and it's also got an extension to help me connect in other things I'll come to in a second. I've got the power supply there so I can flick it on and off with a switched socket. And up here I've got a number of different configurations of operating systems which I can plug in and use across the week. Now, I've already used the Pi to do some email checking and to print out some documents I need for Monday. But I've also today, as you know, been filming. And across the week, I'm going to have to want to back up the things I'm going to be filming. And a lot of my filming will be done on smaller cameras this week for doing video diary entries out and about with the Pi. And that will be shot onto SD card. I can just plug those into the Pi with an adapter. But I also shoot, for example, this morning onto a device like this, which is an Atomos Ninja, which shoots onto one of these, which is an SSD cartridge. And you can plug that, I'm going somewhere honestly, you can plug that into a USB caddy like that, and this therefore plugs in to take files off the device. And what I want to do is to take files from this, and in future from SD cards, and to store them on things like a portable SSD I can take with me, and also on a larger device like this Lacy drive. So you might be thinking, well, that's fine then, Chris, all you've got to do is to connect these directly to your Pi. But if you're running Raspbian, as I am here, Raspbian will read a NTFS disk like this one, but it won't write to it. And it won't read or write to an exFAT disk like this, or indeed I've got an exFAT USB key you may remember from a few videos ago. So what I need to do is to go to Raspbian and to open up a terminal, and we're going to install a few extra facilities. So first of all, I'm going to install the ability to read and write an NTFS drive. For that I need to do a root command, sudo command apt get, and I'm going to install NTFS, and it's what, 3G, I think that should pull down NTFS compatibility. And there we are, after a little bit of sorting itself out, it's done that. I'll just make this window slightly smaller so you can see the bottom of it on the screen properly. I'm also going to install the ability to access an exFAT drive, which is going to be sudo apt get install, and it is exFAT and fuse on the end. I'll enter on that. Yes, we want to do this, of course we do. And there we are. And finally, I'm going to install the ability to eject drives, which is not, again, natively here in Raspbian. Raspbian's pared down to be absolutely as minimum as it can, but for using a Pi for a long period of time, that's not a good idea. So we'll install eject. And there we are. And finally, to make all this work, I've got to do a reboot. So I will close things down and get on with rebooting the Pi. And when it comes back, it should work with NTFS and exFAT drives. So here we are again, rebooted. I'll now plug in our drives. So I can plug in, say, first of all, the Atomos. Oh, that's come up. That's pretty good, the Atomos SFD. And there we are. Oh yes, we can see some files I shot this morning. And I can plug in, if I can find the wires here. A lot of things going on. You can't see, but you know what it looks like. And we also will get, hopefully there, the integral SSD. Yes, that's fantastic. And that will open up as well. So, as I say, those are the files I was shooting this morning on the Atomos Ninja. There's no hope that Pi knows how to read one of those files. Most Windows PCs can't read one of those files, so let alone a poor old Raspberry Pi. But on this integral drive, I've put myself a folder there for storing things, and so I know actually the take I want is that one. It's not that big for me, only 345 meg, and I can just go and copy that, and we can copy it across to our integral SSD. This of course will take a while because USB 2, actually it's not too bad, is it, for USB 2? And of course you might be, say, a photographer who wants to shoot things on your camera and use your Pi as a means of backing them up to another drive. That's a perfectly reasonable thing you want to do in the real world using your Raspberry Pi. But anyway, we've now backed up just about there a file from one drive to another. Now, the final thing I want to show you is that we've now got two drives on our computer here, and you probably think, right, last thing we need to do is to eject the drives. So go to the file manager, open up media to see our external media there. There they are, look. And you could go, oh, I'll just go to eject. Oh, I can't go to eject. Because even with eject installed, you can't do that on the Pi. So I've got to show you how you would safely eject the drive. And to all those of you who say, just pull it out, that really isn't a good idea. So what I've done is to load up the terminal, and I'll just shrink it down for the purposes of showing things to you easily on screen. To see what drives are actually connected to your Pi in the terminal, you type df, disk file system, and it'll show you all the drives currently loaded, including the removable ones we put in ourselves here, the AVR SSD and the integral SSD. So if I wanted to eject one of those, I'd type sudo, root command as we often have, and eject as we installed earlier, and I can now go say dev and SDA1, which is a drive here, which is the Evo. Enter that. Disk file system again, we can just check it's gone, and I could do sudo eject and dev and SDB1, and of course it would do the other one, and it would now have gone. So there we are, we've proved we can do some good data wrangling on the Pi, and I suspect over the coming week as I shoot lots of video, I'll be doing a lot of this to back it all up to keep everything nice and safe. Right, here we are on day 2, and as you can see I booted into Ubuntu Mate, which I find is a little bit better in terms of browsing experience, as I'll show in a second. But the first thing I want to show is that yesterday I was mounting drives under Raspbian with exFAT and NTFS. I've discovered today if I plug in here, for example, a exFAT USB key, it will, in a second I think, yes, appear on my desktop, there it is, and open up, which is great. So in fact, if you want to do a lot of data wrangling, rather than do all that stuff I did in Raspbian yesterday, you could just use Ubuntu Mate. And the great thing is, when you've actually accessed your files, done your copies, if you right click on my desktop, there's an eject button as well, which is fantastic, isn't it? Anyway, the reason I'm here today is to do some social media stuff. It's Sunday afternoon, so YouTube hopefully has just automatically uploaded my regular Sunday afternoon video at 2 o'clock. And I'm going to use the Chromium browser. If you want to get the Chromium browser on either Raspbian or under Ubuntu Mate, just run the Mate terminal, or obviously you have a terminal under Raspbian if you're under there, and you want to type sudo apt get and install, and it's Chromium, you'd have guessed that bit, hyphen browser. You probably wouldn't have guessed that bit. I don't need to execute that command because I've done it already, but that will get you Chromium on Ubuntu Mate. And if we just get rid of that, therefore, I'm going to go run into Chromium. I've already run it up because it takes an age to run, but when it's running, it's fantastic. I found it's the best browser on the Pi for actually accessing interactive services. Like, for example, here is YouTube, which is running, and it seems that it has uploaded my new video for me automatically. It's very clever of it. Someone's disliked it already. Someone always does. Let's see what's going on. We've got, hopefully, this sort of functionality is working. There we are. Someone's, in fact, lots of people are commenting on the video. That's very nice of them, isn't it? Look at this, all these people down here. Fantastic. And I should be able to, on this machine, go into my comments. This is the sort of functionality. It doesn't work, I found, on all browsers on the Pi. You can't answer your comments and everything, but Chromium works both under Raspbian and also even better, I find, under Ubuntu Mate. There we are. There's a comment I need to respond to. I'll just respond to that comment. And there we are. We can see it's working. I've obviously got a few comments to answer here, so I will go on and do that in a second. And hopefully it'll actually also work with the analytics. I'm a YouTuber, I spend all my time looking at my analytics. It's critically vital you look at your analytics at least 12 times an hour, I think. Yes, here it is. Look, it's going to load in and we'll get the standard 7-day view, but the one I really want is the real time. I always obsess about the real time when the video's just gone up. See if it's going to be working. Isn't it great what you can do on a Raspberry Pi? And there we are, look, it's, oh yes, the new video is picking up views, so everything is working. So there we are, that's today's task, to see if I can work in social media okay on the Pi, and I can using this service. So I'll go back to answer my comments, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Right, here I am again, back at the Raspberry Pi. Today I've spent most of my time teaching tutorials at my former employer at the University of Nottingham, and therefore I've not been doing computer-related stuff. But I've come back this evening, I've been checking some email, and I'm also preparing to deliver a lecture tomorrow. And so here I've got my lecture running on the Pi. You'll see I'm back in Raspbian, which I think is my best bet for doing this at the moment. And I printed out my copy of my slides to make some notes on. It's all worked perfectly well. Came happily out the printer of my long USB lead connected to the Raspberry Pi. So my hope is tomorrow to actually deliver my lecture from the Raspberry Pi. So I've got it all connected up. In theory, I can make it work from my little Rai keyboard. Yes, it's going to work. It's worrying if it doesn't even work here. So I'm going to take the Pi with me, connect it by HDMI into a lecture system, and hopefully run it from the Rai so I can bring up my slides like that, but in a very large lecture room. So tonight, not much to say as I'm preparing for tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be out on location and we'll see if you can deliver a lecture from a Raspberry Pi. Right, here we are, it's about midday on a Tuesday. I've just finished doing my lecture from the Raspberry Pi. There it is, look, the Pi plugged into the lecture system here in this 500-seater lecture theatre, and all projected up onto the big screen. It actually worked. Raspbian projected on a massive screen, showing a presentation, and it worked very well indeed. So I think I've proved you can make a professional presentation from a Raspberry Pi. You can take your Raspberry Pi with you, plug it into a lecture system, and it works. And indeed, I'll remember this in the future. It might be easier to take around a Raspberry Pi in my pocket to make a presentation than a laptop or a netbook. Final thing to tell you today is that last night, after I'd spoken to you, I did a very special piece of shopping online on the Raspberry Pi. I actually bought a Raspberry Pi Zero. I actually found one in stock. So we can look at a Raspberry Pi Zero on this channel very soon. Anyway, that's it for me today, being still slightly surprised that all of this worked, and I'll speak to you again tomorrow. Right, it's now Wednesday evening, and once again I've been doing standard sort of email and web stuff on the Pi, document stuff, here back under Ubuntu Mate. But I thought we'd have a little look at the opportunities to use the Pi for photo editing. Now under Ubuntu Mate you have pre-installed this photo application called Shotwell, which shows you the pictures on your drive. You've got all the standard facilities for bringing in photos from your camera or from elsewhere on the Raspberry Pi and its drives, and fairly standard sort of photo stuff. And you can, for example, pick up that nice photograph of a bit of cress. A little bit of lag, as you can see, as it brings an image in. This is a very large image. I think it's about a 10 megapixel image. And if we zoom in, you can see just how big that is, but it does work on the Pi, and you can actually zoom in and out, and it's keeping up, which is, I think, pretty impressive. And you can do in this package some basic enhancements, so I can click on that and it'll take a second, I think, but eventually, yes, there we are. We may think that's better, we may not, but you can do it in this package. However, if you want to do really good photo manipulation, I wouldn't use this. I would go back to our old friend GIMP, the GNU image manipulation program, which you can install on the Pi. If you want to install it on the Pi, you just go to your terminal and you use this command here, sudo apt-get install GIMP. I don't need to do that because I've already done it, so I can just run the program up straight away. So I'll run up the GIMP there. It'll start coming up. As it comes up here, I point out I'm doing this under Ubuntu Mate, But if you were in Raspbian, you can run GIMP under Raspbian just the same, running exactly the same sudo command to install it on your Pi. But here we are under Ubuntu Mate. It's coming up there. It takes a little time to load, but it's not bad, is it? There was no editing in that coming up there. It comes up pretty quickly. And we can maybe go and load in an image. We've got here basically Photoshop functionality running on our Raspberry Pi. If I bring in, say, a picture of a Raspberry Pi, it loads in. There it is. I might want to do, say, I don't know, crop that down a bit. So I might say, go into the thing there, maybe do a fixed ratio crop, maybe 6:4, and maybe take, I don't know, middle of that image there. Little bit of a lag here, you can see, but it still works. And I can just, maybe I'd want to say that bit, and then say, I don't know, image and crop to selection. That seems to work. I could then do maybe image, scale image, a bit smaller, maybe 600 by 400. Maybe I'm going to use it for web purposes. And that would seem to work. Obviously put our scaling back up to now 100%. And we maybe manipulate the image, maybe change the levels a little bit to get it a bit richer there, pull a little bit more contrast out of it. And as you can see, this is working pretty well. You have got reasonable adjustments. Okay, I've made the image smaller, but it does work. And you've still got things like your filters. We could do, I don't know, where's the one that does the lovely things on this light and shadow? There we are. Say, let's put a lens flare on. Let's make the Pi look exciting. Have a lens flare on that USB port. Why not? Just maybe about there, and click OK. And takes a little second, but it'll come along and it's working. This is working, I think, about as quickly as I used to work in Photoshop 3 on a PC probably 10, 15 years ago. So this is a perfectly viable system. You could do decent image editing on your Raspberry Pi. So that's our little bit of a video diary for today, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. So we've got to Thursday, and this morning I was again out and about with my Pi, this time at my local arts centre where I was making a presentation on the future, and I did it again by plugging in the Pi and controlling it with my Rai keyboard, and it worked very well indeed. And in fact, many people were very surprised you could plug in a Pi and make a presentation from it just like that. Anyway, it got me thinking about audiovisual more generally, and so this afternoon I want to show you a little bit more about audiovisual on the Pi. Particularly I'm going to show you a package called Audacity, which is a free audio editor very widely used on all sorts of platforms. If you want to install Audacity, just type in this command in your terminal, sudo apt-get install Audacity. I've already done that, so I'll close that down. And now in my menu I've got sound and video Audacity, which runs up pretty quick, doesn't it? I'm impressed with that. We just pull in a recent file. There we are, look. This is just a small music sting, so we'll just play that. And it works, we can play a file. If you're thinking the audio quality isn't quite right, you can hear a bit of hiss there. It's because I'm having to use the composite jack to actually get audio I can record. It works much better when I don't have to fit in all the recording equipment in the middle between me and the monitor and you. But we could, for example, make, say, an amplification change there. We could do an amplify, and it's already picked the maximum level, and it's much. It's got a more powerful end. We maybe like that end bit, so maybe we can say copy that, and of course paste it in, and maybe paste it even again, and it'll down the noise multiple times. I don't think that's the best audio edit in the world. I mustn't save this back. But it proves a principle. Audacity works very well actually on the Raspberry Pi under Raspbian. That said, I have tried Audacity under Ubuntu Mate. It does work, but it's nowhere near as responsive. It has got some stability issues. So if you want to do audio editing on your Pi, my strong suggestion is to use Audacity under Raspbian. Well, we've reached Friday, the final day in my Pi week, and I'm back in Ubuntu Mate. I do like Ubuntu Mate, and I've run up here the Chrome browser, where I've been using the program I probably use more than any other program in the world, which is Google Docs, the online Google word processor, spreadsheet, storage system, etc. I found my best option for running Google Docs, Google Drive on the Pi, indeed my only option really, is to run it in Chromium under Ubuntu Mate, and therefore I spent a lot of time in this week. So for example, if I click on here my video slate, you'll see it'll open up the document. It's not that fast, it takes it a while, it's starting to come in, but to get a functional document you can edit, you wait quite a long while for things to get going on the Pi. This is not a function of the internet connectivity speed, despite what some of the indications may say on the screen. This is simply getting the thing to work. Now, just as it's loading in, I should point out you're seeing here a document, this is my video slate file, in the Verdana font. Verdana is not installed natively on the Pi. And to get the Verdana font, what I did was to copy the files I needed to a USB drive, put it into the Pi, and then open that up and simply click on each font and press install. Didn't take very long, and then I had all the fonts I wanted. So here I have now, I think the document's finally loaded while I was telling you about fonts, and you can see I've got a working Google Doc, which is fantastic. And there we are, that's my schedule. People always say, what's coming up on my videos? Once the video goes yellow and gets a date, it's sort of locked in. So you can see Raspberry Pi Zero will be coming up fairly soon. And that's because this morning, my Raspberry Pi Zero actually arrived. There it is, look, it'll be featured in a video next week. Anyway, just to prove Google Docs actually works, here's say a document I've been writing this morning, which is about the Raspberry Pi Zero. It's not incredibly fast to work on this. If I go, hello, I am typing in Google Docs. Actually, it's working quite well now, isn't it? But, and I think it is lovely. Yes, Google Docs works clearly on the Raspberry Pi. So there I'm signing off with my final sort of software demonstration, Google Docs running under Ubuntu Mate. So here we are at the end of Pi Week, and it's certainly been very interesting using a Raspberry Pi so intensively over a period of 7 days, and for all those sort of mundane computing tasks you wouldn't normally think of using a Pi for. Now, inevitably I've learnt a few things, not least I've learnt a bit of patience. When you click on a program on the Pi it works, but it takes a bit of time to get there and you have to get used to that. I've also, as you probably gathered, had a great appreciation for Ubuntu Mate this week. I've really discovered Ubuntu Mate is a very, very good Pi operating system. It isn't best for everything. It was not so good for audio editing under Audacity, but when it comes to browsing experience under Chromium and when it comes to running things like GIMP, I've really been very impressed indeed with the Ubuntu Mate operating system. In terms of problems, the one thing I didn't expect to have problems with was the SD card slot on the Pi. I've been switching operating systems a great deal this week, often taking the card in and out many times a day. And on some occasions, on one in particular, I went, my whole Pi's blown up, oh no, what am I going to do? And it was actually the fact the SD card wasn't making proper contact. So I've learnt that in addition to the old computing adage of if it doesn't work, turn it off and turn it on again, often on the Pi, it can be if it doesn't work, turn it off, take out the SD card, put it back in and turn it on again. And at least for me, that has worked. But anyway, that's now it for another video, which I think will be rather long. I've got a big editing job over the next day or so to get this up for you this week. And I hope to talk to you again about the Raspberry Pi Zero very soon.